This is quite an agenda for us. I may have overshot just a little bit when I was writing the description for today's call, because these are all the things that I have told you we are going to cover in the next hour. You can see why I needed to make a workbook so that I was sure that you're getting all the value out of this free call. We're going to talk about how to plan with confidence, how you can teach your class with clarity, how to make your class about your students and not about you. This is the real secret to confidence. I'm going to unpack this a little bit. It's a real mindset shift, and it's something that I know all of us as yoga teachers need to work with. We'll talk about the very framework that I teach inside my big mentorship program called Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing, a mentorship membership. Got a lot of letters in it, which is the 642 framework and the S.E.R.V.E method. We'll talk about how you can go from feeling anxious about teaching your class to teaching it with great confidence, how you can find a good balance between consistency, which your students dearly need, and your sense of creativity and serendipity as a yoga teacher. And we'll talk about ways that you might address imposter syndrome, burnout, and standing out in a saturated market. There are a lot of yoga teachers. And just to go ahead and spoil that for you, it is to focus on your students, not yourself, and to up your people skills. We'll be talking in a little bit about why people keep coming back to your class, how it is that you can become almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher. And I know that the way to do that is by really seeing your students and making it about them and not about you. So you're offering a sense of connection and presence in class instead of making your class into a performance. This is how you become almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher. Notice that when I say almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher, I have a parentheses around the word almost, because you're never going to be everyone's favorite yoga teacher. And the sooner you can accept that not every student is going to vibe with you, not every student is going to come back to your class, the more you're able to let go of your perfectionist impulse. Trust me, y'all, I get the perfectionism impulse. But the quicker you can let go of that and make your yoga class an experience that is student-centered rather than teacher-focused, the happier you are going to be, the happier your students are going to be, and the more they will come back. The more student retention you'll have, the quicker you'll get to sell out classes because you focus on your students in the class. So that is absolutely critical. That is the key to becoming almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher. So if you look at the pinned document, which you'll see at the top of the chat and then also in the notes, if you open up either of those windows from the sidebar, you are going to get this free workbook that I made for you, and I'm going to pull it up on a screen share for us, and we're going to work through it together. Okay. So this is the favorite teacher workbook, I'm calling it. And it is giving you a walkthrough of the things that we are going to cover today. I'm pulling it up so that I can see it here. All righty. If you're not familiar with Google Docs, let me give you a quick orientation. On the left, there are expandable tabs. And from this expandable tabs, you can see the entire table of contents, as it were, of this little workbook that is my gift to you. I'm closing it on my screen just so that I get more surface area here, but know that you can expand that at any point. Also, if you hover to the left of any header like this, you can collapse or expand it, and that's how you'll be able to see everything. So I'm going to work us through this bit by bit. The first thing we need to talk about is the mindset shift that's got to happen before we can even get into frameworks and methods. Your yoga class should be a student-focused experience. That's what's going to make it easier on you, because you will get out of your own head and be looking at and centered on your students. The mantra here for you, and if you've listened to my podcast called the Yoga Teacher Confidential podcast, this was the episode 1 focus. It's also the concept of a wonderful book on marketing called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. You are not the hero of your yoga class, just like you would not be the hero of your brand. Your customer is the hero. Your student is the hero. And the sooner you can wrap your head around that and make decisions from that, the quicker you'll become almost everyone's favorite teacher, and the more comfortable and familiar your students will feel coming back to your yoga class. So write this out where you'll see it before every class. You could literally write, I'm not the hero, I am the guide. Or if you're a Star Wars fan, I'm not Luke Skywalker, I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi. My students are the heroes of the practice. Each of your students comes into your yoga classroom with their own needs and their own main character energy. And we want to celebrate that, we want to elevate that, and we want to guide our heroes toward better internal connection. When we try to make our yoga classes about ourselves as teachers, we're pulling them out of their inner experience and into watching us perform for them. That's not the point. Again, speaking of my podcast, it's coming up on its 1-year anniversary, and I recently recorded and edited the annual anniversary episode. It'll be episode 53. I think it comes out 2 weeks from last Tuesday, so in 12 days or so. And this is this irony that I've found at the heart of doing this work with y'all over the last year, of helping teachers move from this crisis of confidence coming out of their 200 and into feeling like they know what they're doing, vanquishing imposter syndrome, and really serving their students. The irony is you probably became a yoga teacher because of how the yoga practice helped you connect with yourself, how it helped you go inward, how it helped you do those very things that I said we are trying to do for our students, right? But the minute that you become not the yoga practitioner, but the yoga teacher, it's not about you and it's not about your practice. Now, I know if you've taught even one yoga class, even like in your YTT, that you felt like, oh, teaching itself is a practice. I absolutely agree. Teaching yoga is a practice. It is a practice of yoga, but it is not your own personal yoga asana practice. I hope that makes sense to you. The problem we often get into as teachers is that we feel self-conscious and we drop back on what we know and we drop into our own yoga practice while we're trying to guide the room. And that is going to exhaust you. It's going to confuse your students. It's going to keep the focus on you rather than on your students. So you'll hear more about that when that podcast episode comes out in a couple weeks. But I really want you to internalize this and find some way to remind yourself every time before you go into class, either this exact phrase, I'm not Luke Skywalker, I'm Obi-Wan, or some sentence of your choice. And this is a Google Doc, so you can click in and write whatever you want right here. And you've got your own copy. This is, if you clicked copy, it's now in your Google Drive. It is completely unique to you. This is not something that I can see or that anybody else can see. So feel free to personalize away here. All right, we're going to move on from that initial mindset shift that we need to make. That's stage 1 to becoming almost everyone's favorite, is to center them. Aren't some of your favorite people the people who make you feel really seen and paid attention to? That's the gift that we're here to give to our students as well. The next section of your workbook is a cheat sheet walking you through this 6-4-2 framework. You'll also see it if you hover over the agenda at the top of the video if you're in the live call right now. But I have put this as a checklist, so when you are looking at your class, you can check and uncheck this. This 6 moves of the spine is probably something that you learned in your yoga teacher training, or that you just kind of organically picked up from going to yoga classes, because it's the framework on which we build most of our warm-up sequences in virtually every style of yoga. So I bet you've been to a yoga class where you did cat and cow. That is your flexion and extension of the spine. And probably right after cat and cow, you settled back to a child's pose and took a lateral stretch from child's pose. That's your side bending in both directions. And probably after that, you went into a twist of some kind. And that was your rotational exercise, twisting left and right. So all of these are just a way to remind you to take your students through the various planes of motion: the sagittal plane, forward and back, the lateral plane or the frontal plane, side to side, and the transverse plane, round and round. That 6 moves is maybe a phrase that's familiar to you. The 4 lines of the legs may be less familiar to you, if only because I kind of made it up. It's my way of reminding myself when I'm sequencing either a warm up or a standing flow or mat work or even the finishing portion of class. I want to work my students around the world of their hips. Get the front of their hips and legs, their quads, their hip flexors, tibialis down in front of the lower leg, the back of their legs, their hamstrings and calves, the inner line of their legs, their adductors, the inner thigh muscles, and the outer lines of their hips and legs, their glutes, their IT bands, the muscles that abduct the legs from the midline. This is another way of thinking about moving the body in space. And this is the recipe for a balanced sequence and a balanced class plan. Finally, the 2 core actions are stabilization through the core, think plank pose. This builds static strength and control, and articulation through the core. Think your cat-cow. Think any rippling spinal wave movement. And this is where you get mobility for the spine and you practice dynamic movement and control. These are 2 ways you can work your core, either to fix your spine and pelvis in their relationship to each other, maybe while you're adding load of moving your arms and legs, or to let the small muscles that operate on the chain of your spine move it fluidly through space. Now, if you are able to construct a sequence and a class that covers all of these, you're cooking with gas. It's a balanced sequence. And I want you to feel confident because you know you are serving your students something nourishing. Just like if you're a parent or a caregiver, you're feeding a young person, you feel proud of yourself when you're able to put together a square meal for them. Similarly, you are going to do the same thing when you serve your students balanced sequences. So the 642 is your model to get you going with that. And if you want to read more about that, you can read my book called The Art of Yoga Sequencing. That is a framework that will work for you. Now, I want to ask you real quick a poll question. Let me slide this out of my way so I can see the poll. I think it should pop up on your screen. Yeah. What would make you feel more confident as a teacher? Is it to know all the sequences, to memorize every sequence in the Art of Yoga Sequencing? Is it instead something different, like maybe having one solid sequence that you could adapt to any group? It's a good cooking analogy there. It's like knowing you have one go-to recipe and you can adjust it to make it vegetarian, to make it vegan, and so on, to make it gluten-free. Do you secretly want to have the fanciest class on earth? I bet you don't. Or would you like to have a framework that ensures you are feeding square meals to your students every time? Those are the questions for you. Vote in the poll if you can. I'm going to click us on out of it in just a moment. I'm choosing one. I'm choosing framework. There we go. And here are the results of the folks who have answered. This is your last chance to get in and answer this poll if you're watching live. There we go. Yeah, we want a framework that ensures balance every time. Did you feel like I led you toward that answer? Definitely. But yes, we want to know that we can operate in these frameworks that give our students what they need and help them feel nourished. So let's move on to the next framework I want to share with you. This we could call a method rather than a framework. It is a way that I teach in my main mentorship membership program, Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing, how to keep our students front and center and how to serve them best. That's why it's called the S.E.R.V.E. method. So you can expand the tab here by the S.E.R.V.E. method, and it'll drop this down, and then you've got your cheat sheet here for what the S.E.R.V.E. method is. The S in S.E.R.V.E. stands for structure your class, structure your foundation based on solid physiological principles. Because if you are guiding shapes, you need to be aware of what exercise physiology has to say. And it's that bodies do well when they move in various planes of motion, when we get the right amount of load balanced with the right amount of recovery for them. So we're not overloading them, but we're also not understimulating them. So that's the S. And this is not something we're going to cover right this second, But you can come through this workbook and design for yourself, maybe you already know what it is, your go-to base sequence. Write out one reliable sequence that you could teach every week, not just a sequence, but a full class. If you are feeling stumped when you come to the workbook to do this exercise, come through the zone at Comfort Zone Yoga. And underneath book resources, which is an open free space, you'll find my greatest hits lesson plan. That is my recipe. That is my vegetable lasagna. That is the thing that I know I can always fall back on or pull out of the freezer, as it were, when I don't know what I am going to teach in class. I have this go-to. So you need to identify your go-to, and then you're going to feel this calmness, this awareness, like having a well-stocked freezer, that you can feed your students something nutritious and delicious, well-balanced, and then you can start to keep that as your base go-to for the next several weeks. But we'll get there in a second. The E in S.E.R.V.E stands for experience before teaching. I know if you're busy driving around town, teaching at a lot of different places, your personal practice is often the first thing to fall by the wayside. And yes, that can serve you for a week or two, or maybe a month or two. But the farther you and your own personal practice deviate from each other, the more distant you get from each other, the less connected your students are going to feel, because you got this disconnect. So you have got to put on your own oxygen mask first. You have got to feed yourself first. You have got to keep your cup full. Any of these analogies works, and they're all really true. You need to experience a yoga practice of your own. And guess what? You can also use this as a teaching moment, because you should taste things before you put them out for your diners, right? So once you have your sequence planned, experience it yourself. And this workbook prompt is asking you to commit to doing that. Say, I will practice my sequence on this day for this amount of time before I teach it. Then you can start to ask yourself, how did that feel? What do I want to change for my students? That will keep you on track. The R in S.E.R.V.E stands for repeat. You need to repeat sequences, lesson plans, movements, chains of movements, transitions, even single poses need to show up on a regular rotation if you want your students to adapt and grow. I know we get this message from social media that every class needs to be fancy and new and sexy and exciting. Y'all, that's not true. Your students want what they had the week before. If they're coming back to your class, it's because they liked what you served them the last time. I use a restaurant analogy here too. If I go to a restaurant, it's my first time there, I very much enjoy it. If I go back again, I don't want the restaurant to have changed much. I don't want the menu to have changed much. Maybe there's been a little bit of seasonal rotation, but I probably had my eye on something that I wanted to try, or maybe I'm a real creature of habit. Maybe I'm going back to eat the same thing all over again. So don't feel like it needs to be sexy, exciting, new, and different week to week. It does not. Here is a permission slip that you can fill out for yourself. Give yourself permission to teach the same base sequence. And I left this as a number that you can fill in, because if this is scary, you can start with number 2. I'm going to do almost the same thing next week that I teach this week. And your students probably are not even going to notice on a conscious level. They'll probably notice on a subconscious level, because it feels comforting. It feels familiar. It feels delicious to them. It feels like what they were craving when they signed up, got in the car, on the bus, on the train, and came over to your class. So don't worry about making it sexy and new. Do focus on serving your students consistently, week in and week out. It's great for them. That's how they build their strength, their adeptness at yoga. That's how they can go toward the inner connection that we want to offer them with yoga, because it is so important to not have to be following new instructions every time. Then the V in S.E.R.V.E stands for vary with intention. When I took an intake of the folks who signed up for this, I had a couple of responses that were pointing to this. So some folks were asking, well, if my students are asking for requests, what do I do? And here's the secret that I have learned over 22 years of teaching yoga. It's that you're going to teach what you were going to teach anyway. You're just going to sprinkle that spice on top. So you can take requests at the start of class, and then you'll just highlight where you can address those areas over the course of the sequence you'd already planned. So you're going to take your first week sequence, you're going to teach it as is, and then you're going to start to think in weeks to come, how can I tweak this recipe based on the requests that my students are giving me? And I gave you some space here even where you could go look around, workshop with your friends from teacher training or your teaching buddy or your most regular students. How could we focus on these areas? These are the most requested areas. I hear hits the most because I teach athletes, and but I know that people also hear neck and shoulders a lot. You can focus on neck and shoulders in any and every yoga pose. So it's really just a question of highlighting that that's the featured ingredient in the way you're preparing the recipe. Then the second E in evolve is for evolve your voice. So you want to think, where am I now as a teacher? Where do I want to be? What do I want to develop? And what's something that I can work on this month to start to evolve me in that direction? Another element of this evolution of your teaching voice is not needing to stay the same as you were when you first graduated from yoga teacher training. It's having a mind that's open to change, that's open to growth, having a mind that's open to learning new and better ways of doing things, having a mind that's open to the possibility that some of the old structures and rules that have been passed down as alignment must-dos in yoga are actually just vestigial alignment rules and really don't apply to current understanding of people's bodies. So we're going to get to talking about people skills in just a moment here. As you'll see, that's the next section in your workbook. But I want to give you another quick poll. Thanks for that question, Joni. I'm excited to see that somebody saw how to use the Q&A. I see there's also room to add in the Q&A at the top there. So feel free, anybody, as questions come up, to put them in. Here's another poll for you. And yes, this is absolutely a leading question that I'm asking you. But what makes you want to return to a class? I hope you haven't gotten so far away from your own teaching that you don't get the chance to go take other people's classes. If you do, if you can't remember the last time that you took a class in person, let me challenge you to do that, because it is going to teach you so much about people skills, so much about managing your students' experience, because so much of the calmness and connection that can happen in a yoga class actually happens before the student even walks into a class. And then much more of it happens in the class itself, when the teacher sees you, when the teacher learns your name, when the teacher says, "Oh, you're totally new to me, aren't you? This is so exciting. What brings you to yoga today?" These people skills, these soft skills, are the real key to helping you become everyone's favorite teacher, almost everyone's favorite teacher, because they felt seen and cared for in your class, as you see in one of these. So slide on in, give your answer in the poll if you haven't yet. I'm putting, let's see, it's hard for me to choose between two of these because they're kind of the same. I'm putting feeling seen and cared for as a student. I think a lot of us agreed. Yeah. And totally valid to Sue for saying amazing sequences that are different every time, because you're a yoga teacher, right? And so when we're yoga teachers, we have a great time when we wind up in a class where we feel like, oh, we can magpie and cherry pick this and this and this. But for the more regular practitioners who aren't always looking for something fresh, that can be a slippery slope where it's different every time. Great. Well, let's move on to talk about these people skills then, because this is the next topic in your workbook. In my newly launched membership called the Prep Kitchen, which is kind of like a way station en route from the free area in the zone where y'all are to my full mentorship program, which is a 6-month intensive, there is a stepping stone where you might come through and just have a snack before you begin to create your own gourmet restaurant with a whole recipe box of your own. And this is called the prep station. I've kind of positioned it as a teaching luncheonette or a diner or a snack counter. And in this offer, I give you a little prompt every Monday. The first Monday of the month, I give you a sequence that follows the 642. So that's expanding your repertoire of sequences that you can practice and teach. It's follow along, you get to do it with me, and then you can think about how you might teach it in your class. On the second week of each month, I give you a theme seed. It's not a full theme. We do that but in the prep kitchen, I give you just a little idea, a quote, a poem, a song, a concept. This month, we were talking about fall, for example. Something that you might build into some messaging or inspiration or a full-on theme in your yoga class. On the third month, we talk about the call that we have because we have a live call like this that's exclusive for the prep station members. I lead you through some movement. I feed you a live snack, and then we chat for the rest of the hour. But the fourth Monday of each month, I give you stuff that will fit in this category, the people skills, some kind of teaching tip that will level up your teaching right away, that will help your students feel seen, feel appreciated, feel connected, something that will help you become almost everyone's favorite teacher because you gave them that sense of yoga, of connection, of union in your class. So in August, we played the name game in the prep station, and the challenge was to learn folks' names. So you'll see a really truncated version of that here. Nothing is as sweet to people as being called by name. If they didn't want to be seen, if they didn't want to be known by name, they would be following along with a video on YouTube or Peloton or Apple Fitness Plus, right? Your students are coming to class because they are looking for some kind of connection. Now, you don't need to love bomb them. And I'm not even saying necessarily that you need to call out their names in class. I kind of feel like if you're going to use one person's name in class, you should try to use everybody's name in class. And that seems like a later on skill to develop if you're still kind of trying to keep right and left, separating your brain as a new teacher. So don't worry about getting too sophisticated here, but learn 1, 2, 3 student names in every class this month. And here's some space where you could write them down. And you may need to give yourself some kind of reminder, like Brenda is a nurse and she has short blonde hair. Stuff like that. Before every class, it's nice to remember the kind of things that make people feel seen and welcome. Using their names, of course, making eye contact with them. Again, they could be following along with a video. Asking them genuinely how they are. Asking them about the vacation they told you they were going to take. Remembering these little minutiae about their life. And if you're not rushing off to the next thing, being available in the yoga studio for a quick chat after class is another great way to help your students feel seen and connected. And also notice and acknowledge not just achievement of somebody getting their first crow pose or holding tree pose for 5 breaths for the first time. Also notice and acknowledge their effort because we want to emphasize the process over the outcome in our yoga classes, and that will also help your students feel excited to be there and really seen, valued, and appreciated. So that's an example of some people skills for you. Then, as we think about evolving your voice as a teacher, you can drop down the weekly reflection practice. Here are a few prompts. If you'd like to journal, these could be journal prompts. Since this is a Google Doc, please note that you can just hit return and type your answer like this. So feel free to customize this document however you like. But ask yourself what worked? What were the roses? What were the keeps that you want to make sure that you keep doing in class? What were the thorns? What were the things that you might like to drop or that you would totally redo for next time? And then what would you like to grow? What are the buds? What are you going to add next week? This kind of 10-minute, very short exercise is going to level you up as a teacher really quickly because you're taking the time for a reflection. You're taking the time for your own professional development. It's really a smart thing to do and to get into the habit of doing wherever you are in your teaching career, especially if you're a newer teacher. Down toward the bottom of this free workbook, you'll see there's a little 30-day action plan where you could start to put some of these tips into practice, and questions that you can ask yourself 30 days from now. If you like to use calendars, you might write yourself a little reminder in 30 days to check in and see what may have changed for you. I've given you a few little mantras here and space where you could add your own. I'll point out that inside comfort zone yoga, there's a whole space called yoga teacher affirmations, and each of those is designed to help build your confidence as well. Then down here at the bottom, I've put some links straight to some ways that I could help you. If you're hungry, get another food analogy. For more support, remember the prep station is the lower ticket offer. That is ongoing monthly support. It's a membership that you can subscribe to and cancel yourself out of all by yourself anytime. You can come and go as you please. Once you feel full, you can cancel, and I won't even need to be involved. But that's the place where we could work together on these live calls once a month. There's specific calls for the prep station and a whole host of videos that will help you feel like you have reconnected with your practice in ways that are going to make you a better teacher. Then there's a link to my full-featured mentorship program. This one goes really deep. We talk about where you are currently as a teacher. We talk about ways that you can include almost everyone in your classroom, ways that you can teach to just one particular person, either in a private lesson or a workshop designed for a very particular niche. We talk about including themes in your yoga class. I help you build your own recipe box of lessons so you don't just have that one that you might have put up at the top as your go-to back pocket lesson. You'll have a host and you'll never lack for creativity in the classroom again. And finally, we develop a sustainable plan for your career in the 6th month in the program. Plus, I hope you know, you've got access to a lot of free resources from me, the Zone community where we're meeting right now. There's my podcast. There's a whole podcast episode about learning students' names. And here are my socials. Love to see you there. And if you follow any part of this workbook and it makes a difference, I would love to celebrate you. So be sure you tag me on socials. There's no letter D in my last name. So it's Sage Rountree with no letter D. And that is my handle across all the socials. If you take away anything from the call, I want you to remember that your yoga class is not about you. It's not about you performing, and it certainly is not about you being perfect. All you need to do is be helpful. All you need to do is see your students and thank them for coming out to practice for themselves. They're really, really lucky to have a teacher like you who's able to get out of their own head and make it about the students. You're the Obi-Wan. They're the Luke. You're the guide. They're the hero. That is your tour through this workbook. I'm going to close us out of this guy and stop my screen share. That makes me very big, and then also gives me some access here, again, to work through the agenda. Let me click. Excellent. So if you have questions, I am going to start looking to answer them. I see 2 questions from Joni, so I'm going to start with those. If you would like to ask a question out loud, you can do that by putting your question in the queue. Click the queue button and then number 2, or you can go to the sidebar, or you might see it at the bottom if you're on mobile, and put yourself in the queue. So I'm going to highlight Joni's first question. This is a great one. How early do you recommend practicing your sequence before teaching? I think what you mean is, like, do you want to do it days before teaching, hours before teaching, minutes before teaching? I think all of the above. The more you can embody the sequence, the more times you have done it, the better. If you do get called last minute to sub, and I own a yoga studio. I know this happens. Sometimes a teacher has car trouble, or one time there was a railroad crossing on the way to the studio, and the train rail gate got stuck down, so the teacher couldn't make it. Stuff happens. If that happens and you're subbing in last minute, just do your best. But this is why it's good to have a back pocket sequence that you're really clear on. Again, if you're feeling like, I don't even know where to start with a back pocket sequence like that, come on through to Comfort Zone, look at book resources, and then go to my Greatest Hits lesson plan. It's It's a whole sequence that focuses on side bending tree pose, and we do it in different orientations to gravity. We do it on our backs, we do it standing, we do it as side plank, and we do it belly down. So we're facing every direction of the room when we do it. And that is a really good, well-rounded sequence. I am giving it to you. You can take it, make it your own. Think of it as like my specialty of the house recipe. That's a really good one to have. And that would be one to practice so that you can really embody it. There's a full follow along video on that recipe card, so you can practice it along with me. It takes an hour or so. It's a full sequence. I very often find myself chopping up parts of that sequence and putting them into other contexts. So I hope that answers the question number one, Joni. And if it doesn't, just circle back in the chat and we'll move on. Now, Joni also says, I'm a new teacher and I'm already so nervous when I'm teaching. I feel like I only have the capacity to remember the flow. How do you start theming your classes and being comfortable adding in? That is a really good question. All right. I know you're nervous. It's good to be nervous. Let's reframe your nerves as caring. And I say sometimes, and sometimes I almost feel like I'm there until the minute the class begins. And this is something that I realize is actually my own expression of nerves. The day that you just kind of go shuffling into your yoga class like the Dunkin' Donuts commercial, it's time to make the donuts, and you don't feel nerves or excitement to be there, that's probably the day that you should retire or at least schedule some kind of sabbatical so you can let your well refill. Don't worry about being nervous. That's absolutely a good sign. It means you care about the experience for your students. So I am really hoping that reframing your nerves as care and focusing less on yourself and more on your students is going to give you that push over the hump of this confidence crisis, that you are not alone in feeling. So many people feel it. So many people in the zone feel it because I'm attracting newer teachers straight out of 200-hour yoga teacher training here. The nerves are not a bad thing. You need that kind of arousal is the psychological term for it, that excitement, in order to perform well. But your yoga class is, of course, not a performance. It's a focus on your students. So keep reminding yourself, use the mantras, use the affirmations that are in the workbook, in the chat, and it will help you stay focused on your students and really see them. Keep teaching the same flow for weeks, Joni. Don't feel like you need to change it up every time. You don't. Your students are going to benefit from having a similar sequence week in and week out. And once you feel like, okay, I actually do have this embodied, I have it memorized, I'm even getting right and left right 70% of the time, then you can start to add little flourishes. And the flourishes might even just be things like adding the neck and shoulder requests that were asked or highlighting where the hips are working in the sequence. Theming your classes is, yes, it is a next level skill for sure. And you may know that I have 2 books about theming yoga classes, co-written with my collaborator, Alexandra. They're called Teaching Yoga Beyond the Poses and Teaching Yoga Beyond the Poses, Volume 2. What we teach you in those books and what I cover inside my mentorship membership is that you want your theme to happen at a few different points over the course of class. So if you get to the point where you're comfortable with your flow, you're good repeating it, then the next step is to introduce your theme at the beginning, not with lots of words at the beginning, just kind of planting the seed. Talk about this concept, this message, this theme, this idea at points when the class is moving. Talk about it at points when the class is still, and then come back around to it at the very end. Sometimes teachers get excited to theme and then nervous because they're like, who am I to say wise things? You don't even have to say anything particularly wise. You just need to ask questions of your students and let your students supply the answer. This is another way to become almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher. Give them this sense that they are in a dialogue with you, but recognize that as the teacher, as the guide, you actually are not going to hear both sides of that conversation. Only your student hears both sides of that conversation. So your theme can be presented, as some open-ended questions, like, can you find the right balance between effort and ease here? Or what would adding in more ease look like here? These kinds of questions are questions that your students can be answering in this back and forth conversation. And then they feel like they were talking to you for the entire 60 minutes, 75 minutes, 90 minutes of your class or workshop. So that's something that will come. First, we look to build the base of consistency. Then we can start to layer in a little bit of variety, maybe a little bit of variety in the sequence, and finally, a little bit of extra messaging. It's really the sprinkles on top. You'll get there. I know you want to do it. I love to do it too. But don't let that freeze you up. I think if you give yourself permission to come back to layering in a theme in 3 months, 6 months, a year, you can focus on the basics now, develop your confidence, develop your student base, and then you can start to layer in the themes. All right. So we're going to look at this next question from Katie. I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to move us over to it. Let's see. Highlight. Katie's asking, would you recommend using a similar sequence for different classes? For example, for a foundations class and a normal vinyasa class with some adjustments. And Katie is not a ringer. I did not ask Katie to come in and ask this question, but yes, I do. I feel like at the root, a good sequence is adaptable to almost every class format, whether it is gentle yoga, a flow yoga, like super spicy, hot power flow yoga, yin yoga, and even in some cases, restorative yoga. We could be using similar shapes, similar base recipes, and adapting them for different classes. And I hope you will try this because this is how you free your planning time. Our November call here is going to be about planning your class in 15 minutes or so. So we will certainly cycle back. I hope you'll RSVP and come to that call too. But yes, absolutely 100% recommend using a similar sequence in different classes. In the foundations, you might just be working on the 3 seminal poses in the sequence. And in your vinyasa class, you might come up with all different ways to kind of present and flavor the sequence. I know there's a food analogy to be had here. It's got something to do with like high gastronomy, what my aunt calls streak and dab cooking, and like foam and essence. And like that's what your vinyasa class take on it would be, like gourmet restaurant version of the recipe. But then you can also have the luncheonette, the diner version, the lunch counter version that's really basic. And that can be absolutely delicious too to teach. And that's a good entry point for your foundation students who in 2 or 3 years from now may wind up being your vinyasa students and not even realize that they're eating the same thing because it's been prepared in such a different way. But the constituent elements are the same. And once we start to think, oh, that's true, not only do we free up planning time, we get to zoom out with our sequencing brains and think in terms of deep structures, like the 6 and the 4 and the 2. So yes, absolutely, I recommend doing that and making whatever adjustments you need. You are welcome. All right, we got another question I saw pop up. This looks like a good one. Sue asks, how is a gentle flow different from using this template for formatting sequences? I'm not sure, Sue, because I don't know exactly how you teach gentle flow, as you might imagine. Different areas, different teachers, different studios are going to have different parameters that they put around what constitutes. So depending on where you teach, like I have a mentee inside of Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing right now who teaches both at a few studios where it's kind of DIY. She can choose her own adventure. She's got freedom to sequence and teach as she likes. But then she also teaches at some branded franchise studios. And they tell her very specifically, like in a class called Slow Flow, you can use no more than six chaturangas. And that is how they have decided to define their classes. So I'm not sure how you would define gentle flow here, but I think the greatest hits recipe can be presented as gentle flow. I bet whatever your go-to could be presented as gentle flow as well. I really think that when you see the deep structures, you're working on on that deep level, at the framework level, on the macronutrients of good movement nutrition. So just like a chef is thinking in terms of protein and carbs and fat needing to be elements of everything, or the flavors, salt, fat, acid, heat, as flavors of something good, then you can really mix and match regardless of the style in which you teach. And Sue is saying she realizes she's got a freedom to create, and what that means, because the studio is not specified. It's good. I think it's a good thing. It gives you a chance to eventually evolve your voice into a signature style. And that signature style is another way you'll become almost everyone's favorite teacher, because they'll know what they get when they come to your class, just like you know what you're going to get when you go to a particular restaurant, because the chef has such a unique voice and a flavor profile. That was a really good question. I love how these questions all weave together and interacted with each other just beautifully. We've got a few more minutes, so if there's something that you want to ask, don't be shy to ask. I'm going to click on through and give you a few next steps here under this closing agenda. So if you are interested in learning more about planes of movement, if you're a reader and you like to see these in place, pick up my book called The Art of Yoga Sequencing. It came out in 2024. You can get it wherever books are sold. And I would personally love for you to get it from your local library. If they don't have it, if you ask them to order it, it means not only you, but other people will be able to read the book for years to come, which makes me really happy. I get paid the same regardless. I get paid the same regardless of where you buy it too. So buy it from your own favorite bookseller. Absolutely happy to have you do that. And it will get you up to speed on some of these. If you want to learn more about the S.E.R.V.E method, but for free, there are some mini courses in the Zone at Comfort Zone Yoga. One is called Find Your Teaching Voice. I think that's the one that has the S.E.R.V.E method in it. And then the other one is called Fundamentals of Confident Teaching. And each of those is going to directly complement the work that we've done here in this session today. So go click your way through those if you haven't done that yet. I also would love to see you in either of my containers, the Prep Station or Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing. As I said, the Prep Station is the luncheonette version. It's the bite size. It's something for you to nourish yourself, to get what you need to get a little bit of infusion of ideas and these deep structures modeled for you as you plan your classes. I know it will make you a more confident teacher. And then, of course, when you're ready to really work together, we'll be in this 6-month container inside Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing. And that is half of my 300-hour yoga teacher training. So if that's something that you want to do, feel free. Oh, thanks, y'all, for the comments. Yay, Brenda's in the Prep Station. And thank you, Amy. Amy's inside both the and the Prep Station. So when you move into you will get the Prep Station for free. And some of the chefs who have already graduated out of have taken the step down to the Prep Station, and then we get to be connected. Let's see, Sue is asking, I'm new to the Prep Station and have yet to go through it. Yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a huge movement library in there, and I'm trying not to overwhelm you and fire hose you with a bunch more information in there. Yes, the sequence is in there. I'm going to link to it when I put up the call recap too, so that you can go and see, like, what would greatest hits look like? I think it's about time. I've got us scheduled out in these Comfort Zone Conversations calls for the next several months. We've got Amy, who's on the call today, is coming to talk to us about yoga retreat planning in October. So that's a don't miss. Even if you're like, oh, it's a long way in the future before I do a retreat, you're going to want to hear what Amy has to say. You're going to get some dishy stories regardless. So even if you don't think you want to do a retreat, put that on your calendar. I think it's October 9th, but you can come to the Zone and confirm. Then in November, as I said, we're going to talk about how to plan your class in 15 minutes or less. In December, we'll do a year-end retrospective, because that's what December is for. And in January, we'll do a year ahead prospective, look ahead at our teaching year, try to set up where do we want to be next December as teachers as we continue to evolve and grow. So that's the next several months of these free calls in here. But I'm thinking it might be time to break down the greatest hits again. I did that several months ago. And if you dig down in the Zone, if you type in greatest hits in the search bar inside Comfort Zone, you'll find the recap for that call. But I'm thinking maybe we need to break it down together and talk about how we can all use this as a base recipe that we can adapt, because that one in particular feeds itself to yin yoga. It can feed itself to gentle. I teach it a lot with the football players. 300-pound linemen are doing it. So it must be a pretty adaptable sequence if it works inside the studio and inside the weight room at football. So we'll look for that sometime in the late winter, early spring of 2026. For now, please come through and RSVP for the upcoming calls. I'm always excited to see who's coming. I always love delivering these. I love your interactivity in the chat, and I'm really grateful for that because it would feel weird if it was just kind of me talking to the camera. Yes, it's the greatest hits, and Joni, thank you, Joni, has found it. Great detective work, and it's been dropped in the chat for the main room. So you can go to the chat and click right through. In fact, if you got nothing to do in the 3 o'clock hour, you could practice that sequence right now, and I bet you're going to have a lot of ideas. Then in the 4 o'clock hour, come through to the workbook that I shared with you and make some notes on it. Maybe you're ready after only an hour of exposure to this recipe to start cooking it for yourself. That is it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful. I love to focus on you and try to give you things that are going to serve you as you serve your students. And I hope to see you on the next call. Awesome. Y'all have a good one. Bye.